Greetings, this is John from RVA Katana in Richmond, Virginia, dialing in from home and wondering why this camera is making me look so orange. Anyway, I have been getting more sun lately, but I definitely don't think that would cause this. Anyway, I have one of our new arrivals. This came last week. This is a Naginata Naoshi Wakizashi, which is to say, actually, it's not a naoshi. This particular blade, I believe, was forged to look like a wakizashi, and I think so because it has what's called a kaeri, and a kaeri is a turn back on the hamon. And I'm gonna try to hold it up here so we can see it, but you can see how the clay tempered side turns back. And so if this was a real true naginata, it probably would have had a more sweeping curve, and the kaeri would have been up here somewhere. So I do think that this probably was forged to be a wakizashi blade and not to be it was not a naginata that was converted later to a wakizashi. There is a little bit of a difference there. So anyway, yeah, this is one of the cool ones. I am not 100% sure how old this one is. It's really hard to tell because somebody cleaned off the patina on the tang. It is not signed, and it definitely has a really pretty hamon to it, and the jigane is really good, but I'm not very good at evaluating these sort of things. I would guess that it is late Edo period, just from the look of it, but once again, that is not my forte. So once again, this is one of the new Nihonto that we got in. The other one I have here is old. It is a Muromachi period sword that was converted. Now this was converted from a nagamaki. And so you can see here, the tip of the blade has this really interesting sweeping curve. And I am a big fan of nagamaki. And I'm not even sure why. I just think they are such a cool concept. Kai Mara says, "What's going on, everyone? Hey, and Addicted to Blade in the house. Awesome, great people here." So anyway, this is once again a very sweeping looking blade. This one was once again a longer, probably a katana length blade with a very long handle. Hey, Jill. And so this one is Muromachi period, so it's at least 400 years old, possibly as much as 600 years old. Very hard to tell. It is an old polish, so it is pretty hard to tell the details, but you can see that it has a thin Sugaha hamon, which is fairly indicative of what do you call them, of the Yamato tradition, but who knows? Not my once again, not my forte. So that was another one of the Nihonto that came in, and this is the final one that also came in. And hey, Outlaw Samurai. This one is an Osaraku style. This is an Edo period, also unsigned. But you can see that the yokote, that is the transition to the stabbing tip, starts here about halfway into the blade. So that is a pretty cool sword, in my opinion. Hello, Jaded Acres. And hello, Hands and Hammers. Let's see. Thank you, Hands and Hammers. So this one I really like the shape of this one. This is more of a classical Osaraku style shape, a little bit different from the one I have. I have one that is also an Edo period, late Edo period one, which is just the jigane, the utsuri, everything about it is really beautiful on mine, much prettier than this one. But this one definitely has more of the Osaraku shape. So I think one of these days I definitely want to get an Osaraku for myself, which is a little older. Like I'd like a Muromachi period Osaraku. I'll show you my Osaraku here. So this one, yeah, very curvy, much stable polish. Yeah. So this is my Osaraku. You can see it's pretty straight actually. So the longer I've had this, the less I love it. When I first got it, I was just like, absolutely in love with the sword, but it does have a lot of detail. I don't know how well you can see the detail of the blade. My camera does not necessarily bring that out very well, but this one has just a gorgeous hamon to it. It has tsunagashi, the flowing sands in the blade. So big fan of this here. But yeah, I'm a big fan of things that are a little bit different. So whether that's in modern swords or in antique swords, I kind of like things that are out of the standard, like just not shinogi zukuri, the really typical type. Which isn't to say I don't have many. I mean, I definitely do. But I like them when they're a little bit different. This is actually one of my favorite swords that I have. This is a 500-year-old katana, but it's what's called a kamuri otoshi zukuri. So it's not a regular shinogi zukuri. You can see that it doesn't really have a shinogi line. It's actually flat here. It's hirazukuri here, and then it thins out along the spine here before thickening again. So this is called kamuri otoshi, which literally means falling crown. So, big fan of this particular shape of a sword. This one actually has fittings to it as well. Actually, that Wakazashi had fittings as well, but this one originally went into these. I shouldn't say originally, but sometime in its life, in its most recent life, fit inside these Edo era fittings here. Do you have an antique Nanbokucho Zukuri katana? So Nanbokucho Zukuri, I assume you mean it has just a huge okisaki, and I don't have any here. I am actually going to be getting one. It's on its way from Japan, but it's waiting on sayagaki, that is the writing on the signature. But I will be getting an antique. It's a giant sword. Probably it'll be the biggest that I own at 87 centimeters length. So we're talking about almost Odachi length. It's a giant sword. Can't wait for it to arrive. Hope it doesn't get stolen in New York. This is actually right here. You said Nanbokucho, and this actually wait, not this one. This is my pride and joy. This is the sword that I love the most. This is okay. So the sayagaki was done by Tanobe Sensei, who is one of the most foremost experts on swords on Japanese swords, and he says this is at least Nanbokucho period, and it is possibly Kamakura period. So, but one of the interesting things, it doesn't, Nanbokucho period swords tend to have okisaki. But you'll see this kisaki is actually not too big. It's actually smaller than your average shinogi zukuri one. But this is shinogi zukuri. But this is a tachi here with a very deep curvature. I like to put it on my center to let you show how far off to the side it goes. So, but this is Kamakura to Nanbokucho. And this is sort of my prized possession. It's a 82.5 centimeter long blade, which is pretty long. I mean, the average production katana is 70 inches. So if I showed them in comparison to each other, you could see just how much longer this blade is compared to a standard blade. Well, I guess these are still in the sheath, so it's really hard to compare. But trust me, it's about 3 to 4 inches longer. As a tachi, it is stored blade down. So tachi are really, I love tachi. This is a court tachi and ekutachi. And so these things were popular during the Heian period, though this is not a Heian period sword here. Let's see. And this thing, it actually has a very, very dominating presence in a room. It's very hard to tell on camera, but when I first saw it, when I bought it from its owner, he had it sitting in this corner, and it just like it just had such an amazing presence inside the room. That sori says Hand and Hammers. Well, that sori, I like it. I want one. How do you afford such expensive blades? Well, I sell a lot of modern blades, and I use my ill-gotten wealth to buy antique blades. So that's one of the things with RVA Katana. We are a shop in Richmond, Virginia, and we sell lots of swords. So you were saying, I think someone was saying that they like the sori. This actually is a katana. And I'll compare this. This is the tachi I was just showing. And so this is the tachi, and this is the katana, and you can see that the katana has a much deeper curvature to it. The one in my right hand here has a deeper curve. This has a sori of 3.4. This has a sori of 3.9. So this is my most deeply curved sword at the moment. And this is a Kashu. This one is Hoju school. This is the Kashu school. So, and this one has such a deep curve to it. I'm going to put it on my midline, and you can see how far it curves off to the side. This one has such an enormous curve to it, but the detail isn't quite as interesting as the other one. What's really cool about that first sword, I'm going to go take that out again just to show you, but this is once again a very deeply curved katana. It is not a tachi. Looks like a tachi, but it's not. And we know this because the signature, a katana is worn blade up, and the signature is actually on this side, making it a katana, not a tachi. But anyway, going back to this one here, this sword was made by the Hoju school, and the Hoju were from these people called the Emishi, who are not ethnically Japanese. They occupied northern Japan. They were probably somewhat related to the Ainu people, and they were excellent swordsmiths. And basically, there was a war where the Emishi were almost exterminated, and so their swordsmiths actually dispersed throughout Japan. And so many of the techniques of emishi swordsmithing became the foundation of like modern Japanese, I shouldn't say modern, but Kamakura era Japanese swordsmanship. Your knowledge is impeccable. That's not necessarily the truth. I don't know a whole lot about it. I'm learning as I go. I really, actually, for a long time, I really wasn't that interested in antique swords. I liked, modern swords, which I could cut with. And I mean, I guess technically you could cut with antique swords, but I don't. I definitely don't. My teacher would definitely cut with an antique sword if he got his hands on them. So I try to keep them away from him. So anyway, one of the really cool features of the sword, I don't know, you probably cannot see it very well, but it has what's called Ayasugi Hara. So it looks like a very interesting Damascus. Is kind of what it looks like if you look at it up close and in the right light, which is, we don't have it here, but this one of these days, well, I have pictures online and you can see what it looks like. But it definitely has this really cool, what do you call it, hara to it, jihara. And so it's interesting, like in this lighting here, if you just sort of look at it at a distance, it has the really typical sparkling of tamahagane. But then when you look at it really close, you can see that the jihara, the patterns of the folded steel. So it is really cool. I really love this sword. Everything about the sword is amazing. That is not the longest sword I have. The longest sword I have is, even though this is 82 and a half, this one is 84 and a half centimeters. This is an Edo period sword. It's about 350 years old. Yo, what's good, John? Hey, Tone Deaf. Everything is awesome here. Wish the Ravens had lost, but other than that, it's been a great day. I got this for the shop, but it got damaged in transit from Japan, and so I'm waiting for an insurance claim before I sell this baby. Let's see. So this one's also very beautiful. And so what you see here, this is a Shinto sword. This one, Shinto being swords that were made during the early Tokugawa era. And so big fan of these. I'm not a big fan of these swords in general. I don't, these are swords. They really had time to own their craft, and so they're very beautiful swords. But I kind of have a thing for older swords. I generally like older swords better. But you can see once again how long this is fairly straight as well, a long straight, but also narrow sword. One of the things that was popular later in the Edo period was the kinoto, and kinoto were these. I'll show you a kinoto here. This is a kinoto. This was made probably in the 1850s or so. And so the kinoto were swords that were preferred by these partisans who supported the emperor over the shogun. And they liked these big buff swords. You can see the handle. I'm going to compare that to a modern day production sword, and you can just see the difference. I mean, I know a lot of you are sword buyers and and users. So this is a sword that most of us would get from size wise, shape wise. This is a typical like 26 and a half centimeter, 26 centimeter ska, 70 centimeter blade. Or for those of us who are metrically challenged, 10 and a quarter and 27 and a half inches. So you can see just size wise, this one is just enormous. And look here at the difference in the size of the tsuba. So these are the kinoto. They were preferred by these partisan samurai, and a lot of them had big personalities just like their swords. Let's see, outlaw samurais, have you ever had a real muramasa? Oh gosh, no. No, how expensive would that be? I mean, I don't have that much money. Not much tone deaf. So anyway, this is a very big buff blade as well. And you can see just how wide, this is a super wide blade. And also very long. If I remember correctly, this is 78 centimeters long. Or maybe 80 centimeters. I don't remember the exact length. But this is, about 150 years old. Pristine condition. This was actually once in a museum. I acquired it through Ray Singer. He helped me acquire this sword. I originally got it because I just thought it was so cool. Then I thought I was going to sell it, but then I ended up holding on to it. I'm really appreciating the sword more and more. Most of my collection is big. For antique swords, I generally go for the bigger swords, probably compensating for something. Let's see. I don't know what happened to the padding. This kake is not particularly friendly to swords. This is actually my favorite sword that I have in my collection, and this is Ray Singer. Also got it from Ray Singer. He says it's at least 700 years old and possibly a Heian 1,000-year-old sword. Let's see. And this one has a fake signature, a gime. And what I like about this is called a Slender Tachi. And so these were used on horseback. You can see if I put it up close, the blade isn't much wider than 1 digit of my finger. So at the motahaba, it's only like an inch wide. And then when you get to the tip, the kisaki, you can see it's not even the size of one of my digits. So this is a really cool sword in my opinion. It's a little bit different. The mune is, instead of being triangular, it's rounded. So I'm a big fan of these guys here. Big fan of what's called a marumune. I'm gonna get this rewrapped. Right now it's in saran maki, but I plan on getting it rewrapped. Good night, Jill. Thanks for joining in. Freedom units are best units. Give me American measurements over non-American any day. This one is, I think, 2 shaku 4 sun, if I remember correctly. So, which is to say it's 28 inches. Nagasa. This is a sword I'm waiting on the fittings to get to be. I had to get the fittings redone. Also got this one from Ray Singer. And this one has a deep curve. This is called a kenuki gata. So it's secured by these pincer style thingies in it. I have yet to see it with my own eyes completely assembled. So I can't wait to get this one. I need to get it polished. This blade is not in the greatest of shape. But I want to get it polished and identified to find out who made it. So. Very deep. I have a big thing for curved swords. When I'm collecting antique swords, I like things that are old, long, curved, and a little bit different. And so that sort of sums up my swords. And gaudy. I've always been a big fan for gaudy swords. So does anybody have any questions or comments? I'm very happy to try to answer questions, show off things that we have here. Have Chinese swords here, some European swords here. These are all modern. These are our budget swords at RVA Katana. Antique swords on the back. I think I showed all those. And then we have a bunch of Tachi and Nodachi over here. So I'm a big fan of Tachi and Nodachi. So, let's see. Jesus, that's sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of deeply curved swords. Here is one of my actually favorite modern swords. And this is called a torikubi, a phoenix head, tachi. You can see instead of a menuki, it has this. I guess this is still technically a menuki, but it is ginormous. The tsuba is meant to look like flowers. Check out the claws on the ashi. And just the ashi, once again, are feathers. And instead of having a semigane, which is that little piece on the usually it's a little ring, this one has an entire phoenix wrapping around the scabbard. I actually am mean to take pictures of this sword and bring it in today. And this one, the blade is just, the cameras never do them justice. This one has a Sugaha Hamon. It is a Sanmai blade. It has a Koshizori. You can see how much of a deep sort of curvature it has. And this is, I think this is, if I remember correctly, a 31-inch Nagasa blade. Do you have any review samples you want to test it, preferably a Nadachi length, but will test any kind of blade? Not at the moment. I think we're pretty good with our testing and our testers at this present moment. Thanks for the offer, Outlaw. Natsu, just new to the channel, great info, subbed. Thank you. I adore how it has gold mixed in everywhere. Yeah, it's a gaudy guy, you know, or girl, because it's actually, this is the Phoenix, so this is the female version. I'll show you the male version, which is the dragon. What I don't like about it is the sageo. I wish it had a nicer sageo. But this is the dragon version, so it has a dragon head. And then it has, you can see a dragon there. And the tsuba is just amazingly gorgeous. And then the ashi, look at the detail on the ashi. And this one's the semigane as a dragon. Same style blade as well. Really pretty blade. So these, I'm going to get pictures. I'm finally going to get them on the website. I've been sort of putting it off because I enjoy having them here in the house, but I am going to get it on our website fairly soon. For those of you who know, our website is rvakatana.com, and we are a sword shop in Richmond, Virginia. I'm currently coming in from home, but at the shop we have 500 plus different types of swords. Outlaw Samurai was talking about a Nodachi, and this is a cloud hammer. This is actually a three of a kind. Cloud hammer only made three of these. This is a folded steel, clay tempered Odachi, and so cloud hammer only made three, and so it has this really beautiful polish that brings out the folds in the steel. You can see that when I put it here. So the polish is really well done. Now the problem with Odachi is you really don't want, if you're going to use a functional sword, you really do not want a clay tempered Odachi because there's so much leverage at the top end here when you hit something, and if you have a bad angle, which you are going to get because if you're not used to cutting with it, they when you're cutting this way, they tend to droop, and so it's really hard for edge alignment. At least that's been my experience with it. And so this type of like a clay tempered steel sword, you're likely to bend. So this is definitely much more of a functional decoration. Like if I had to defend the house, sure, I'd use, well, it'd be impractical in a house because there's just no space to use it. I adore how it's the goal. Oh, I already got that one. Do you also offer payment plans? Yeah, Outlaw, we can definitely do that. So this one is a 39-inch long blade. So typical Odachi that you see on the market are 34 to 36 inches. This one's longer at 39. But this is still miniature compared to this one here. This one is the Cloud Hammer Sup 12 spring steel Nodachi. This one is a 47-inch blade length. It is a giant sword, absolutely giant. I hate taking it out because it's always hard to put back in. Got my hair in my mouth. Always a little bit harder to get back in to the scabbard. But we'll do it for you guys because this is my first time, I think the first time going live on TikTok. Or sorry, not TikTok, but on, what do you call it? YouTube. But you can see here what a long blade this guy is. 47.5 inches. It is made of spring steel, so when you swing, it's going to be very forgiving. Seriously, I've cut with this guy, and it was very hard to cut with because of just the way the angle and the weight and the balance worked. So it was bad edge alignment, but because it's made of spring steel, it didn't set the bend. It probably would have bent based on. Actually, I hit the floor too because I wasn't used to the length. Oh, I always hate putting this. I hate taking this sword out because I always hate putting it back. I'm always worried I'm going to stab myself. Oh, made it in first try. Whew. So yeah, watch the ceiling. Definitely, that's the case, Ryan. I want that. I want it now. I need 47-inch blade now. Yeah. This is, I think, probably I've never seen any other 47-inch blades on the market, but Cloudhammer does have these. This is a sub 12. It's a pretty pricey sword at 850 bucks. That Nodachi is likely as long as me from heel to skull. Blair, that's because you're short. I'm 6 feet though, and you can see at 6 feet, it's coming to my chin. So all in all, the blade is 47 inches plus the hilt. I think is 13 with the kabutogane on it. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, tachi, the end of a tachi is called a kabutogane, not a kashira. So why, I don't know. But I'm a big fan of tachi. I like gaudy, big gaudy things. So I think someone was asking about a nambokucho style. By the way, I think Outlaw, you were saying nambokucho zukuri. That's not. I don't think that's actually a term. I think that's just something that Hanwei used to describe their okisaki on their raptor. Nambokucho is famous for having those big kisaki. But here's actually another sword. This is my prized modern sword. And this one is a sanmai. Check out the polish on that. Check out the triangle bohi termination. And it is an unukubi style. But look at the okisaki on this guy. The ginormous okisaki. Let's see. Spring steel is a great option for Odachi. Yeah, I would say if you're going to be cutting, then with an Odachi, then start with spring steel. Definitely start with spring steel because if it's a clay tempered one, you're likely going to bend it. And then here's another okisaki sword here. This one is Cloudhammer's Crimson Tide. This is W2 cable steel. Blair says that run of Sephiroth katanas a few years ago may have as long as, yeah, I think the Sephiroth is 120 centimeters, 120 centimeters, which is 47 inches. I think the Sephiroth though, because I think Mark has it, the guy Mark Bergstrom who works for us, and that thing sags under its weight. If you hold it horizontally, it's just so heavy it sags. But Sub 12 is such a rigid steel that it's not going to sag. Anyway, check out the okisaki on this guy as well. It's huge okisaki. Big fan, big fan. And then this is an Osaraku style wakizashi. Check out the blade on this guy. We just got a new one of these in. Actually, new versions with different color scabbards. Like one is sort of a crimson and the other is Ishime black. Let's see. Do you have any of the Legacy Blade Odachi on hand? We do not. Actually, Outlaw Samurai, I do have one, but not the ones that we sell. This one's just sort of a personal one. Interesting, it sags. Crazy. Yeah, Blair, I remember just the first time that Mark brought it in, I was just holding it out, and the blade it was just like, it needed Viagra, pretty much. Love the color of that red. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Though one thing to take about that red is it's actually not quite as bright red. It's just the camera tends to compensate for my complexion. It tries to make me look better, and in that way it kind of cheats the camera. This is a Legacy Blades Odachi, but this one is a Sanmai version. It has a scorpion. Check out the tsuba on this. If you like scorpions, this one's got scorpions. It has scorpions here on the futsi and the kashira as well. But this one is a Sanmai blade at 36 inches. You can see what lamination lines, and the polish really brings that out. So this is a Legacy Blade Odachi, but not one that we sell. It's just sort of, eventually I'll put it up for sale, but for now I'm enjoying it here in the house. Love the color of, okay, let's see. Kind of do like scorpions. I know you would, Blair. Yeah. Oops, this one didn't get it all the way in. Been thinking of buying one. Yeah, we do have it in spring steel. If you're not used to cutting with an Odachi, start with a spring steel is my recommendation. While that handle is fantastic, I love when the handle is longer than the Odachi. Is longer on an Odachi. Yeah, I think if there's any issue I have with Cloudhammer's Odachi was that they only made it like 12 inches. I'm just like, dude, I was really upset actually when it came out. Show us all the Zoro swords, please. We actually have them, but not here at my house. I'm not really an anime fan, so I don't keep the anime swords here. But at the shop, we have the Zoro swords. I just don't have them here. We will go live. I'm more likely to go live on TikTok, but yeah, you can definitely see our stuff from the shop. Oh, I just check out the Scorpion Menuki as well. This is the one thing. I don't really care a whole lot about Menuki because you can barely see them. Let's see. Yep. So I've pretty much gone through almost my entire collection here. Nothing else to see, unless you want to hear about Chinese swords and S5 European swords. That's pretty much it. So anyway, I guess I will shut this down, but thanks for joining in. Unless anyone has any last questions, anything I can answer. All right then, talk to you guys later. Thanks for joining in. Wait. Yeah. And how do I shut this down? Oh, here it is.